So everyone's doing it, not just because we can see into the future, we have a crystal ball, but because it's a healthy exercise to actually look ahead at the year in front of us and to make predictions and figure out how they'll impact our lives. So it's a popular thing to do on YouTube at the beginning of the year, and I decided this is a good exercise. I'm going to try it. You might want to try it too. It's a way of assessing our judgment and having some self-awareness so that we're not just dreaming up a wish list. And predictions, that's different. A wish list and predictions, really different. A wish list is what I hope to happen, who I hope to win, who I hope to go away. But predictions are more realistic, like what's probably going to happen. And it gives me a better sense of how I can plan my year and the things I'm going to do. And it also doesn't upset me as much when something happens that I know I don't want to happen, but I could pretty much see it coming.
Little trouble there.
So instead of setting goals like become a millionaire or get in shape, predictions are things that are going to impact us. They seem bigger than we can do anything about, like we lose a sense of control. But actually making predictions gives us a sense of figuring out, okay, if this is probably going to happen, I think this is going to happen, how am I going to arrange my life, align myself, be prepared? It's sort of like when Christmas comes around and all of a sudden you realize, oh crap, I got to spend money. Well, you knew it was coming the entire year, but you weren't prepared. This idea of self-awareness is based on what Aristotle actually said, not the made-up meme about how holding contrary ideas. Aristotle actually said this: "It is right that we ask people to accept each of the things which are said in the same way, for it is the mark of an educated person to search for the same kind of clarity in each topic to the extent that the nature of the matter accepts it. For it is similar to expect a mathematician to speak persuasively or for an orator to furnish clear proofs. Each person judges well what they know and is thus a good critic of those things. For each thing in specific, someone must be educated to be a critic. To be a critic in general, one must be educated about everything." So here are my predictions for 2023. What do you think yours are going to be? Hi, I'm James Callahan, and this is the Do-Over Show, where we try to get a sense of perspective so that we can see the things that are coming and not just be surprised one day when the sun rises. My first prediction is a big one. Apple will make a huge acquisition. They'll just spend billions and billions of dollars to buy someone outright, something that will improve their ecosystem. It could be, they could buy Disney outright, just cash. Here you go, here's some cash, we'll have Disney. They could buy Tesla outright without blinking an eye, without breaking a sweat. Yep, Apple will make a huge acquisition, and they're going to try to do this. Now, they're going to have antitrust issues, but they're going to try to do this to build a monopoly. Every good larger company that we know tries vertical integration to build a monopoly. People don't like it, they fight against it, antitrust laws are there, but it doesn't stop them. That is the goal of every successful company, is to be a monopoly, and Apple will make a big acquisition in 2023. That's what I'm predicting. All right, next thing is about the economy in general and inflation and recession. So here are the details. Inflation will ease in the first or second quarter of this year in 2023, but only to spike in the fourth quarter of this year leading into 2024. That means that demand destruction will be obvious. How do you measure demand destruction? Well, rising interest rates, slowing the economy. It will happen in two ways that you can pay attention to that will make an impact. One, oil prices will drop because demand will drop because of demand destruction. The next thing is the Federal Reserve's effort to punish the workplace market to unemployment numbers will jump the numbers from the almost ridiculously low 3.5% unemployment today to closer to 5% by the time we get to early 2024. And that'll mean that there will be a new hit that the economy will take. Now, in this, the markets, remember, are forward-looking, not backward-looking. The markets will look, and they tend to start to rise or go up in valuations about a quarter to 2 quarters, so 3 to 6 months before the hardest, hard hit of a recession takes place. Which means that I'm thinking that by the end of this year, markets will begin to rise on a significant clip. because they'll be anticipating the rise. And with the lowering of inflation and the hard hit of a recession, the Federal Reserve will begin to actually back off interest rate policies, and there might actually be a government stimulus package or relief package that will give a third wave to inflation, will again pump up inflation, but by then it'll be a new set of problems, and we won't call it this recession, we'll call it the next recession. So that means smart people between now and then are going to put their money into short-term bonds, and they're going to make a guaranteed 4 to 5% return while they wait out the economy. For me, that means I'm going to spend more time in cash. Even though inflation's in place and I'm losing ground, I'm going to save more money. I'm going to put aside more money and keep it in cash so that I can deploy it when the market begins that forward-looking uptick. Now for politics, especially in Washington, nothing will happen is my prediction, and that's actually a good thing. Markets tend to perform when government is divided, when the House or the Senate or the presidency are in the hands of different parties. And that's the way it is right now, and that means it'll be a good thing, while there'll be more of a fight to spend money, to even offer stimulus. That means that things will move a little slower, and when things move a little slower, the markets tend to go up and the economy tends to do better. So a divided political leadership actually has a historic uptrend for markets and valuations and even the housing market. Now, on a more personal level, there is one backward-looking thing that's important, and that is personal savings has dropped precipitously if people have spent what they've saved up. Next, personal credit has jumped exponentially in the past few months, which means we're buying things that we cannot afford with cash. Now, that means that something is going to break. And the breaking point will be that people will run out of money, they'll run out of credit, they'll panic, interest rates will continue to rise on personal credit. I think they're averaging almost 20%, 18, 19% right now. So that when you're paying off your credit card bill, you're going to be taking a 20% annual hit on all the money that's borrowed. Ouch. So by the way, anything I can do to stay out of debt, that's what I'm doing. My prediction is that people who stay out of debt, even though they have to lower their standard of living over the next 12 months, will actually survive 2023 in a much better position for an uptick that will happen in 24 into 25. So close to this is my prediction that Elon Musk will spin off Starlink from SpaceX, and it will be, multi-billion-dollar valuation, which will give him, again, more money than anybody in the world. It'll give him free cash flow. It will make Starlink, the internet provider through satellites, will make it a huge impact in our connectivity globally, which it's already having regionally. But that means that Elon Musk will once again be able to do just about whatever he wants to do. And the interesting thing is how that scares a lot of people, because he is not an arbiter of one side or another necessarily. He may be, I don't see it, you may see it. It's probably because you don't like his politics. If you do like his politics, you're like, yay, Elon. If you don't like his politics, you're like, money's evil, Elon's the worst. But I'm predicting that he will do something, and I think it's with Starlink, that he'll spin it off SpaceX, he'll go public with it, he'll get billions of dollars personally in his coffers, and he'll again be able to do whatever he damn well pleases. And if you're the richest man in the world, the richest person in the world, being able to do whatever you damn well please pretty much comes with that territory. So it'll piss off a bunch of people, but I think that's what's going to happen. Now, in academia, where I spend a lot of my time working as an adjunct and consulting and working with higher ed, both students and administrators, in academia, there'll be a compromise with the student loan forgiveness idea that Biden and others floated, that courts said, no, you can't do that, you don't have the authority to do that. And that is, what will happen is that will be sort of a permanent deferral. A grace period will kick in. That'll be the compromise. So that the debt will not be forgiven. It'll still be in place, but you'll never have to repay it. So all student loan borrowers will just have that sort of hanging over their heads, and they'll learn to live with debt like the federal government learns to live with debt. And that'll be the model. So what this does, this is a bailout for higher education that increased costs exponentially over the past 20 years. Students had to pay for it. Government stepped in to backstop these loans, to guarantee them. It's the one thing you can't be forgiven. You can't be forgiven IRS debt. Go into bankruptcy. There are two big things that you will never be able to have forgiven, and that is your IRS debt, what you owe the IRS, and secondly, your student loans. Nope, there's no forgiveness. There's no bankruptcy for student loans. So the compromise will be that higher ed will get the bailout that they need to sustain their high costs for offering college and university education. But it'll be a eternal grace period, eternal deferral that will just be there. And people who have student loans of $100,000 will live and die with an outstanding loan balance of $100,000. And death will be the only thing that will end that obligation. That's my prediction. That's the compromise that will happen. Oh, the other thing about admission policies, back on Halloween last year, the U.S. Supreme Court heard 2 cases representing Asian students who claimed discrimination based on affirmative action guidelines that colleges and universities were using. My prediction is this year the Supreme Court will overturn affirmative action for enrollment guidelines from colleges and universities. Public, especially public, and private will feel some impact from this. But that means that there will be a removal of affirmative action, so that Asian students were sort of the workaround to affirmative action, which was primarily based on race, and became a way for then people to look at the qualifications, the standard testing and the like. And Asian students tend to outperform in admissions requirements, and yet they're capped, or there's a quota on how many can apply. And they would be overrepresented because of culture, development, and the social pressures that are part of the immigrant and Asian communities in higher education in North America. You may not like this, but that's the way the story is told. Okay, something more personal in my situation. We've been looking to buy a house in our area for about 2 years now, seriously looking, making offers and getting outbid. Even when we make the offer for the asking price, we're getting outbid by 10 to 30% over ask for modest houses in our area. And that's because the housing market was red hot. Interest rates were low. We started looking when interest rates were about 3 and they jumped to 5. And then we finally said, whoa, we're just going to back off and chill for a while. The housing market has not yet experienced a downturn like the economy because of inflation and recession and demand destruction have happened. And that's because people in the housing market are the last to experience the consequences of higher interest rates and a downturn in the economy. People who looked at the value of their house 2 years ago and imagined they could get so much money for it, 2 years later in today's market don't want to look at it and say, oh, I get $100,000 less for my house. They will not admit it until it's basically too late and they have to sell. So that means discretionary selling, unless people are forced because of a work change, for example, or relocation, they're not going to sell. They're not selling. The number of houses in what we're looking for in the low end in our area, on the west side of the Chicago area, there are fewer and fewer houses offered. No new houses in the past couple weeks in the area where we want to buy. So I think what's going to happen is that it's going to have to take that uptick in unemployment. Remember, a housing crisis is not a housing crisis. It's actually an unemployment crisis. It's when people can't make their mortgage payment because they've lost their job or been laid off. That's when a housing crisis hits because people can't make their payments. Banks begin to own this property, foreclosure, they sell it at their cost. That's when everybody in the housing market has a crisis, when there's an unemployment crisis. And until unemployment gets closer to 5%, which the Federal Reserve Bank has said, yep, we want to make it hard. We want to bring pain, rein the pain for those of us who work for a living. When that happens, then people will have to sell. Then housing prices will drop. By then, interest rates will drop probably back under 5%. And then the housing market will be revived a little bit, and hopefully then we'll be able to buy a house in the area we've been looking for a price that we're able to pay. Okay, so those are my predictions. That's the way I think of the big world and how it's going to impact how I live and what I want to do and what I want to plan for and what's going to happen. So what are your predictions? What are the things that you see that are happening, seem to be beyond your control, but are actually, they directly impact what you're able to do? Remember, predictions are not a wish list. It's not who you want to win an election or what you want to happen, but it's the reality of dealing with what's probably going to happen or the way things are going and being prepared for them so that you're not surprised by the ordinary things that everybody around you seems to be looking at and saying, duh, that was obvious. So what are your predictions for 2023? Go ahead, drop a couple of them in the comments and let's see. Let's hear from each other and see what it is that we think is going to happen and how it's going to impact us this year. Hey, and thanks for being part of the Do-Over Show. Please, while you're here, could you spend a moment and tap the like button, because it really helps. And while you're down there, consider subscribing and ringing the notifications bell so you don't miss the next episode. I'm so glad you found me, and I found you. Thanks.